growth in the economy, to expand the economy and to improve the lives of Dominicans. So there is a theme of generating, wealth, creating wealth, generating wealth, creating employment, ensuring that we do not lose our gains in our social safety programs, and doing all of this in a way that will, at a very difficult time, I should say. So recognizing the challenges around us, but yet we are determined to make those investments for Dominicans. And this is very, very important. The measures taken towards the end, again, reflect the challenging time that we are living in, yet the government is still able to reduce and relieve some pressure on taxpayers, on Dominicans, and the biggest one, of course, electricity.
Yes.
That is still a challenge.
Yeah.
We've done at least what we can do now, with the hope that we'll continue pursuing renewable energy so that we can totally remove, for example, the fuel surcharge. So it is a gradual process, but so far the government has done all that it can within this budget to ensure that we can reduce the burdens on the consumers of electricity.
Certainly, and with all that you said, for many, a budget remains a very abstract thing. So I want to talk a little bit more in detail about the measures which will have an immediate impact on the lives of our citizens. And we can start with what you alluded to, Dr. Henderson, the removal of VAT on the fuel surcharge on Domlec bills. How significant a measure is that?
Well, it is significant because it does a couple of things. I really like the combination of two measures. So one, of course, all of us, we pay our light bills, whether it's pay as you go or we pay at the end of the month. And you will notice that when you pay your light bill, you could check the bill and you will see there's an exemption of VAT on the first 100 units. So you don't pay VAT on the first 100 units or on the fuel surcharge for the first 100 units. But what is being done in this budget is from August 1st, that's allowable units. The units on which you will not be taxed will be increased from 100 to 150. Now, what does that mean in real terms? Well, the average household, and I'm talking about consuming, will be about 350 kilowatt hours. 150 kilowatt hours, there are a number of, single individuals or families, small families, will be close to 150. So there are people who will get that benefit, and they will have we use. Now, because one of the hydro plants has been offline since Hurricane Maria, we are feeling a greater impact of the fuel surcharge. What the government is doing in this budget is to remove the VAT on that fuel surcharge. We're not in a position yet to remove it. The intention is that once we get the geothermal online, we will be able to remove the fuel surcharge totally. In addition to that, when the Padu hydro power plant comes on stream by November of this year, we'll also see a reduction in the fuel surcharge because Dominica could be using less diesel to produce electricity. So that is a big one. The impacts will be felt, and I'm sure that by the end of August, we will hear a little more about it.
Just speaking about electricity and your mention of renewable energy, I must take this opportunity, Dr. Henderson, to talk about our exploration of geothermal in the Roseau Valley. Of course, the Prime Minister referred to that in his budget address. From your perspective, where you sit as somebody who is quite involved in the project, what can we look forward to in the next fiscal year?
Well, and sometimes I guess, you've been up there.
Yeah.
You've been to the Roseau Valley, and I would invite you, Ms. McDougall, you and your NYCB, executive and other young people to please visit the Roseau Valley, Loda in particular, where there is work ongoing. And what the Prime Minister, Minister of Finance did today was just one to remind us that there is work ongoing towards geothermal energy development, because sometimes people think that it's not happening, but it is happening. Dr. Gerjag is very familiar with that site. We've been there at least 3 times for the year so far. So we, in February this year, we signed a contract for 33.7 million EC dollars for drilling of 2 new wells. So that contract was signed with Iceland Drilling. They're expected on island in September to begin drilling and to conclude that by the end of the year. We also have ongoing a contract for $8.5 million with Ace Engineering. And work, I mean, it's amazing to see the amount of work that is being done there, the expansive work that's being done on preparing for the drilling. So we have, so far, 1 area is almost completed, and then the next one, they have started work there about 2 weeks ago. So we are moving. We are also getting ready. We have designed the plant. We know what we're going to build. That has been designed. We have negotiated the commercial contracts. We are at the stage of finalizing an EPC contract to see commencement of work immediately after the drilling. So we have to drill, then test the wells, and then we begin construction. To add to that, we will be constructing new transmission lines. So in order to get the power from Loda throughout Dominica, we need to have lines that can actually carry the power, because 10 megawatts is what we're constructing, and that is more than Dominic lines can carry at this time. So we need to invest heavily in a new transmission system. The good news is it will create more resilience. It will give us redundancy, because we're making a loop through the Roseau Valley. So if one line drops, we'll be able to use another. So that is the redundancy. And then we will be constructing the lines, a combination of underground and above ground, which will be on towers that are much, stronger, withstanding some wind than our regular poles that we used to. So that is ongoing. And after we get to Focule at Dominic Station, we're going to construct new lines as well to go all the way to Portsmouth, which you will have.
Okay. Ms. McDougall, I know you have a particular interest in how renewables can drive economic activity. What is your view on where Dominica is headed in that regard, especially in the context of what we heard today, and more so the fact that the Prime Minister has put the youth of Dominica on notice that this is an area of potential job creation?
So as Dr. Henderson just mentioned, renewable energy is definitely a tool that can contribute to resilience. And this falls in line a lot with regards to the SDG 11 goal. And the Prime Minister mentioned a lot about the SDGs today, the Sustainable Development Goals, and building sustainable cities, right? As I mentioned before, we understand the direct impact that investments in geothermal energy will have. For young entrepreneurs especially, obviously, the move into renewable energy will allow them to recognize decreased cost of production. That in itself can contribute to them being more competitive producers within such a global market. Because now products are not only sold here in Dominica. Your market is not limited to Dominica. In fact, your market is not even limited to the Caribbean region anymore. Your products could go as far as Ukraine, in the absence of the war. But so the drive to invest in greater renewable energy poses opportunities for reduced cost of production. That in itself increased competitive advantages for many of our young entrepreneurs, which is something that's necessary. In our pre-budget consultation, we alluded to the entrepreneurial ecosystem, right? And that ecosystem consists of so many pieces, right? So we're not looking only at the cost of production, but as Dr. Henderson indicated as well, access to markets. And if we're trying to ensure that we're, having a more globally competitive product, it has to be something that obviously can compete with what's on the international markets. And geothermal energy is something that will definitely allow young entrepreneurs to be able to compete. I also want to mention as well, though, that we should not take for granted that geothermal is the only option. There are many options that are available, and there are many subsidies available for persons as well who are bringing in solar panels. And so I think it's very necessary for entrepreneurs out there to get the information that's necessary. Visit the ministries, go to the websites, look for the information that's available to see how you can incorporate or implement renewable energy, because obviously that is definitely a key tool that will lead to increasing your competitiveness as a local entrepreneur.
Fantastic. Dr. Jajak, I don't want to leave you out of this because you are part of the planning ministry, which has a heavy hand in the whole promotion of green energy as the way forward. So what are your views on where we are headed as a country in terms of renewable energy and pursuing that aspect of development?
Well, I'm excited. I'm excited for one, well, of course, the most obvious reason is the self-sufficiency in fuel, in energy generation. I would expect also that this would mean a reduction in the cost of doing business for many manufacturers, which hopefully will translate into a greater number of persons investing, because then they would see a greater return on investment, hopefully, as a reduction in the cost of energy. So I'm excited about that. There's also the effort, I'm not sure if you remember that, Mrs. Smith, but the efforts to tie geothermal energy with agriculture production.
Yes.
The idea being you could use this renewable source of energy to power your modern technology in your farms, to light up your sheds, light up your parking facilities. Instead of going on at 4 o'clock, you now have lower cost electricity. I don't believe it's going to be the same price as was cost for diesel. So it's going to be lower cost, and therefore the farmer could spend more time on his farm, or whole farm, and increase his production. Similarly, we are looking at heavily at agro-processing. I'm sure Honorable Dr. Henderson will speak about that. But the budget, there is a big chunk in the budget is also about increasing agro-processing. So you would read of increasing agro-processing output to add value to agricultural produce, giving grants to small businesses, providing support to farmers so they could convert the turmeric, the ginger, and similar crops into not just selling the raw produce, but also to transforming them into different products that we could sell in Dominica and beyond.
Yeah.
So geothermal is going to be the game changer, much as we expect the international airport to be a game changer.
Of course, we'll get to the international airport in a
Well,
bit.
I was hoping that you would segue there.
Well, I actually want to segue into the discussion on agriculture because, to a large extent, this budget can be dubbed a farmer's budget. We are talking about actions to increase youth participation in agriculture and increase our market share locally, regionally, and internationally. So, starting with Dr. Henderson, I want to find out, why do you think it was important to take this direction in formulating this particular budget?
Well, there are a number of things about agriculture, and I'm sorry to say, but I had my baptism by fire as Minister of Agriculture, and Ms. Malguli would wish to know in my youth. When I served as Minister of Agriculture, we had so many challenges then that we saw the industry went through a major shift, major change with the loss of preferential treatment on bananas. Since then, things have never been the same. But again, in keeping with our often cited theme of resilience, the resilience of our farmers and our people, we have still continued agriculture, and agriculture is a source of income for many. There are many people who continue to benefit. But what we found out, and that is through discussions and having Ministry of Agriculture, trade, looking at what is going on in the industry. So one, we looked at the challenges. So on one hand, there were the challenges with the Ukraine-Russia conflict that's ongoing and the impact it's having on fertilizer, cost of energy, and the impact generally, logistics and COVID and everything else piling up. And then the demands that consumers are making in the marketplace. We put those challenges on one side, and then we saw the opportunities. We saw the opportunity that Dominica still has such great potential for agricultural production. We decided, you know what, we need to repackage. Now, I want to also quickly say that for the last 5 years since Hurricane Maria, we've invested over $146 million in agriculture. $146 million, that's not a little change. So sometimes you get the impression that people are saying that the government is not investing in agriculture. That is total nonsense. I mean, the facts are there to show $146 million over 5 years after being hit by a major hurricane. A major event just wiped you out, and you can make that kind of investment up to today. So what this is doing, what the measures in the budget are really geared at helping us to achieve a target that we've set. So Prime Minister set a target that we want to have $700 million being generated from agriculture by 2030. $700 million we want. That is the figure we want annually from agriculture. But we recognize in order to achieve that, we have to a mix of measures. Several activities have to be financed, and we getting advice from the Ministry of Trade and DEXIA, and you will see there's a new repackaging of DEXIA. So DEXIA is not being expanded, being given more responsibilities. So the key objectives here really is to increase production, enhance productivity, of course, always comes with that, and quality, and to ensure that we can produce enough to totally eliminate the need for importation of stuff that we produce locally. Because we saw what happened since Hurricane Maria especially. We've seen more importation of stuff that we produce. We grow in Dominica. So we want to totally eliminate that, not by just putting measures of taxation and restrictions, but by producing enough locally that there can be the reliability of supply, quality, consistency, and price. So in order to achieve that, we decided, you know what? Farmers respond best when they know they have a sure market and they have a reasonable price. And we saw that through the DBMC model. For years, farmers were producing bananas because they know they could always sell the bananas and they would always get paid for the bananas. They didn't have to go hustling in the marketplace. They had a market that's already secured. So we decided this year that we're placing a facility of $5 million in DEXIA to expand the ability to buy produce from farmers. The pack houses have been purchasing agricultural produce from farmers over the years. So they were set up since when I was Minister of Agriculture. We started the construction of those facilities. And what we're doing this time around is to ensure that DEXIA has the resources to buy more, so that they can do a number of things. One, they can sell to supermarkets locally that are concerned about consistency of supply and that sort of thing, eliminating the risk of having to depend on one producer. So DEXIA will be an aggregator, as my good friend who is responsible for the paddles like to say, so that they can get all that produce and sell it. Secondly, we will see an opportunity for DEXIA to also sell to hucksters on a special credit facility, so that hucksters who want to apply their trade can have easy access to produce. So that is also part of it. And thirdly, we're looking at the opportunity of boosting agro-processing. And we realize that there are a lot of stuff dashing. I mean, I know we have dashing potatoes, we have stuff that we can add value to, so that DEXIA can also serve as the supply of raw materials for those agro-processing activities. So we are seeking to do that. And the intention is to ensure that we can give an incentive to produce. What we want to do is to get production up. Eventually, production, when it gets up, then we can see new opportunities emerging, more export and more value added, and hopefully more local consumption. And that is something we need to talk about at some point here.
We can talk about it now.
Consumption.
Because it's something the Prime Minister keeps stressing, that in order for some of these policies to be successful, that the population has to play its part in terms of consuming local.
Well, he's been consistent on that.
Yeah.
And at one point I thought he was going to go and say one of the things that he's been saying and urging all of us to do in our ministries, to ensure that we buy stuff that are produced locally. The school feeding program should be predominantly local stuff, local produce. The hospitals, the prison services, all the facilities of government. So that is something that he has already instructed all of us to do, to ensure that we lead by example. And I'm happy that we also leading by example here. I'm very happy to see, even without the label, but it tells me that we are serious people. So yeah, that is something, and in the budget, we have $1 million for marketing. And I hope that and well, PM has made it clear that we will soon have a Buy Dominica campaign that will start and have a special month for buying local. And I'm looking forward to the Buy Dominica campaign and the development of the new brand. Well, not the development of the new brand, I should say, the enhancement
Of the
of the
brand.
Nature Island brand.
Yes.
And we're hoping that this Nature Island brand will be developed in various, whether it's in agricultural produce, agro-processing, anything that we manufacture in Dominica, start to push that Nature Island brand to promote our produce and products throughout the world.
Yeah, and I think it's. Go ahead, please.
I don't want to speak about. It is at that point that I found the flavor of nationalism to be most evident in the PM's address. I wondered whether it was intentional or was not, because clearly what he was saying is, we have this fantastic fertile land. We have the capacity to produce these beautiful bell peppers and broccoli, etc. We can make the best fruit juice, healthiest fruit juices. Why are we looking elsewhere? So I think it's a very apt, a very appropriate strategy to not just appeal to persons, but to invoke that sense of national pride. We can grow what we eat because we believe it is as good or better than what we can find out there. Fantastic.
And additionally, to speak to this point of agriculture, because I think we're speaking a lot about agri and looking at the other aspects, horticulture, not looking at poultry. And I mean, poultry is a multi-million-dollar local market. We import a lot of meat, right? And we have many local producers. We had a program at DEXIA a few years ago, which actually trained local poultry farmers across different pockets of the islands. And many of them actually started their own poultry businesses after such a training. And I saw within this budget as well that there was going to be livestock expansion that is somewhat incorporated into the budget, where there would have been a license regime to somewhat reduce the importation of chicken, of whole chicken.
Yes.
And I mean, we can't compare the chicken that we're importing to the local chicken that we consume and that we produce here in Dominica. I cannot tell you enough how beneficial the reduction in importation is. I mean, from the most basic perspective, you're buying local, it means the money is obviously staying local, right? That is allowing other persons to be employed. That is probably allowing someone in your community to work in that poultry farm to perhaps feed the chicks. You understand? So we need to understand really the extent of the benefits of local consumption. And even the points made with regards to the carrots and buying carrots in the markets versus buying carrots at best price or at local supermarkets. It's quite hard for me to see when we import all of these products that we actually produce here in Dominica. But at the same time, I see within the budget that there are a lot of initiatives that are somewhat encouraging persons to go into agriculture, especially young persons. And this plantation society mentality that young people have had around agriculture, it somewhat leads to, I see it changing somewhat. A lot of young persons are getting into agriculture. A lot of young people are talking about going into agriculture because they're seeing the benefits of it, right? And so I believe that many of the initiatives that are placed in here will definitely attract them into getting into farming.
Well, they'll be fortunate because they will be entering those that have not yet producing the sector at a time when their government is prepared to buy from them whatever they're producing. Exactly. But I just want to add something on the livestock that you said. In fact, there is a targeted approach to eliminate the importation of chicken meat. We are looking at not only passing the regulation for the importation of whole chicken, but we're also looking at investments in the abattoir, where there's a $3.8 million investment to ensure we can do some major rehabilitation, expansion as well, so that they can have a greater input or intake of birds and meat. So also, there will be a targeted focus to work with some of the poultry farmers to ensure that they can increase their production. So up to 10,000 birds, that is a target that we're looking at. So that is a major initiative. In addition to that, the operations at the abattoir is being enhanced so that they're going to have working already on a new payment system, because that's one of the challenges, one of the things that we heard from suppliers. They were saying that the time between bringing in the stuff and getting paid is also it's too long, and therefore they would like that to be streamlined. That action is being taken on that immediately. In the new and rebranded DEXIA, DEXIA will also take a bigger role in assisting in that system of payment, since they, as a statutory corporation, have greater flexibility. So that is being addressed. And totally, the essential thing is to also, again, the same Nature Island brand. We're looking at an opportunity where we can actually have cuts. You can have different cuts right there at the abattoir or a related business. There's an opportunity for investment. And to ensure that we can buy, we can process, we can package, and we can supply. So the abattoir's operation is going to be expanded to do this in a more structured and modernized kind of arrangement that will see greater purchase of locally produced chicken, poultry, and meat.
Dr. Henderson, I think we haven't yet touched on the support structures to facilitate all of these. The new agricultural center in Portsmouth, but also the program for feeder road development. I mean, Dr. Henderson, you will know that, but in my younger years, I carried bananas in Cahoon.
You really? In my neighborhood?
And Beaumont as well.
Oh, okay.
You know, and I spent summers in Cahoon. So when the road was damaged by the Mactier Dam,
yes,
that was a heartbreak, because that area is a very, very, very fertile area, stretching all the way back to Beaumont. Cahoon Road is down this year for some major works.
Yeah.
Continuation of the works. Work has started, but we're going to continue through. A number of roads have been mentioned that are going to be addressed as an effort.
Well, I'll tell you about these roads, because we not only, these are additional, these are new, but we already now have about, how many, I don't want to have it wrong, I don't want to guess the wrong number because I don't have it here. But there's ongoing with about $30 million on roads, feeder roads being financed by the European Development Fund. In my own constituency, the Mopo Road is being rehabilitated under that project. And there are several feeder roads throughout the country. So I went up there, and I could have driven up there for a car. The place is so nice, and I like the point you made earlier about electricity. We need to get power, we need to get the farmers access to electricity all on the farms. So we have that, but in addition to that, and I'm happy you spoke about Cahoon, because the Cahoon through the Cuba Road side really needs to be addressed, and I'm very excited about the opportunities there, because that used to be a major center of production in Dominica, and I'm very happy after Dr. Ferraro's property, so I'm going up there, going towards that area. That entire area was a real productive area, and we have several of them. But I wanted to add, the facility, the $13 million facility being financed by the government of the People's Republic of China will help us to modernize agriculture. So what I know Mr. McDougall was talking about, and the youth in agriculture, this is an opportunity to see the technology being utilized to enhance agriculture. So, and there is also a focus on sort of reforming extension services, because the support that farmers need from extension officers, we rely on a system that was supply driven. So extension officers will go around and meet farmers, and we are now focusing on a demand driven system, which will be buttressed by having production, or as they call it, demonstration farms. So demonstration farms, which will be government owned or private sector owned, an individual could own it, but it will have the best practices in certain aspects of farming and agriculture or livestock, so that you can have study tours in these production centers, so farmers can learn the best practices. They can have the benefit to see the technology at work. They can go to the greenhouses, the hydroponics, all the systems, the irrigation system, humidifiers, and production systems. So we're looking at all these things we're talking about. We're going to modernize agriculture. We also have, in this budget, the plan to create 2 new irrigation systems in Salisbury and also in Cannabis. So we're looking at 2 new irrigation systems that will help to enhance productivity in those areas. So the whole effort is to modernize agriculture using climate smart approach to agriculture, so that it can become even more attractive to young people.
And interestingly, it's so interesting that you ended on that note, because I just wanted Ashma to bring an end to that aspect of the discussion by re-emphasizing why these measures related to agriculture hold so much promise for the young people of Dominica.
It holds much promise because, again, a lot of young people were specifically hinting to job creation. And this is an opportunity for them to create jobs for themselves. But more importantly, to add value. Because, again, when we talk about job creation, a lot of us may talk about self-employment and becoming entrepreneurs. And we often tend to run to do the same thing like other people are doing. I think that the support that is being provided here is giving opportunity for persons to somewhat go into, as Dr. Henderson said, more modernized aspects. Even agro-processing, for example, right? We have a lot of young entrepreneurs, for example, who are, adding value to their products, and we're seeing it on the streets. We are seeing investments that are being made into technical support, which is quite necessary. In our budget street talk with young persons, a lot of the young entrepreneurs actually hinted to needing more technical support. The financial aid is there. They can access it at Aid Bank. However, the technical support is what they really asked for. And we see an opportunity there from what Dr. Henderson just mentioned. And so it's important it's there. However, I believe there's another aspect to it, ensuring that the information gets to the young people.
Yeah.
Because we find that many times there's information failure in that although a lot of the activities are being created, a lot of these initiatives exist, but it's not getting to the youth. The information is not being accessible to the youth. In speaking with them, in speaking with many different initiatives, even with the Dominica Youth Business Trust, they were not familiar with them on the streets, right? And so there's much to benefit from, but I feel as well it is very necessary to ensure that we're putting in the proper mechanisms to ensure that that information is reaching them. In addition to that, there was particularly a statement made, that there was $1 million that was going to be provided to support young people to set up a farm for the first time.
Yes.
That was quite interesting because, again, that provides an opportunity for them to enter agriculture in whatever fields it may be necessary. And even so, the discussion of registering vacant agricultural lands, because although persons may, have that access, they may not have the lands, they may not have access to lands, and it's quite tedious finding out where lands are available, right? And so if there's a registry that we can go into and we can look for, potential areas that we can potentially invest into, it might make the process much easier to somewhat get into.
Okay, Ashma, we can be quite sure that you really listened to that budget. Yes, absolutely. No doubt about it. This government has been heavily focused for quite a few years on small business development, which you alluded to, and the facility does exist at the Aid Bank. How does this particular budget continue that focus and continue to provide a platform for young people to take advantage of the opportunities that exist?
Well, I heard today with regards to the access that there will be some relaxation with regards to how persons can actually go in and access that funding, because a lot of times, even me as a young entrepreneur, we find it very difficult with regards to the application process, right? And so we heard of some easing of that. Quite beneficial because obviously they would be able to access it at much lower rates, and at the same time that in itself would allow them to access the startup capital that is necessary to start off their businesses. And so from that particular perspective, we've seen many different, I heard this morning $5 million that is going to be made available in grants for small businesses. And we've seen, especially throughout COVID, I mean, we talk about these exogenous shocks that we've been experiencing and the impact it's having, but we have seen an emergence of small businesses through COVID. Dominican youth are quite unique, quite resilient,
creative,
and quite creative, exactly. And so there have been so many small businesses that have somewhat just emerged through COVID. And so obviously the grants that have been placed at these financial institutions will provide an opportunity to somewhat start up or expand the businesses that they've already created, and see some, I would say, add some value to the products that already exist within our markets.
I like to look as well as a supporting structure. That is the policy president is speaking and thinking. It's not just the funds available for the youth for small business. There's also some technical support at the small business unit. So once if you go there for financing, I'm sure you'll be told, well, look here, doing some hand holding, as it were, coaching, so that you're not left on your own, and just allow you to just.
And they've upgraded into a one-stop shop.
One-stop
Yeah.
shop.
So, and in July 1st of this year, Cabinet also approved a policy that will allow for the small business unit to really help small businesses to take advantage of the fiscal incentives. So the Fiscal Incentives Act is there for all businesses, and although some people tend to believe that it was not for locals, not for foreigners, it's because of the rigorous requirements of meeting, of being able to enjoy those incentives. So what we've done is to make it easier. So now small businesses can go to the small business unit, small business owners can go to the unit, and they will be assisted, and they can benefit from the regime of incentives that are provided for them. So that is something too that we could add to that.
We've been talking about small business, young entrepreneurs. I want to go back a bit to the cannabis industry, and we hear that now agro-processors can engage in the manufacturing of cannabis byproducts. I'm sure you see that as a positive step forward, but I also noted that the Prime Minister said that the sale of byproducts of cannabis, such as balms, oils, and creams produced locally, will be decriminalized. Isn't this a fantastic opportunity for entrepreneurs in general?
Yeah, well, from the way
It is.
I don't know if you answer.
It is obviously. You can imagine the excitement of youth at the last budget with the announcement of the planting of decriminalization somewhat with regard to the number of marijuana trees that they could plant within their households. And obviously we have seen expansion, we've seen research, the research is there, right? Basically outlining the benefits of cannabis. And so for many young entrepreneurs, I see many opportunities for them using it in their soaps, in their skincare products, in their hair products, and we have been seeing an increase in the number of persons who are engaged in that particular industry here in Dominica as well. Globally, we've seen a shift as well. I mean, I'm not natural, but there are many persons who are moving into that natural era, and so that in itself contributes to opportunities for exploring what products we could potentially make from. Right.
Well, there are so many products from cannabis. I mean, from the
impossible.
time some states in the United States and in Canada they open up and they free up the weed. I use that expression. So they decriminalize it, and they've also legalized the use so that production, although controlled, they have opened up in their commercialization, agro-processing, and all sorts of things, all kind of products coming out of marijuana production. So it is an exciting opportunity, but I don't want to sound like the party pooper kind of guy, but we still have challenges to overcome.
Of course.
Because trans-border, movement of
Cannabis, yes.
cannabis and cannabis products, there are still certain limitations on those. So that is something that we will be working on, and I'm very happy that the government is part of the impact project with the government of Canada, working on seeking to deal with these technical issues, because these are some issues that have to be addressed. And fortunately for us, Canada has legalized the use of marijuana even at a recreational level, and therefore they are well placed to assist us to make that move, because that is going to also be important. But the truth is, it has to be approached as a serious undertaking, serious endeavor, commercialized with the science and using the techniques, modern techniques in production, although some people are using more rudimentary techniques and still getting good results. But I think it is an opportunity for us to really approach it in a very scientific way to ensure we get the best outcome.
I like the approach the government has taken towards cannabis. That is a very gradual, what I consider a responsible approach to decriminalize and opening up, building an industry with a technical committee with comprising a wide cross-section of stakeholders. We had this consultation, I think it was at the Bullet Parish Hall, maybe 2 years ago or something. Lots of persons spoke. I was very impressed by the variety of persons who were present. So I think that kind of engagement, wide, broad engagement, not only is healthy for democracy, but also it allows all voices around the table to give an indication of what it is that they expect to get from cannabis, what can be done, what direction we should go. I think it's a very healthy approach that has been taken.
And speaking about that approach, we actually have a member of the NYC who's actually on the medicinal cannabis committee. And we, within the National Youth Council, we are very appreciative of the opportunity to be engaged, because obviously we see that many of these policies have adverse effects, or I should say direct effects as well, on the youth. And so that's why I must commend the government of Dominica for ensuring that there is youth participation. In fact, I don't want to preempt, but with the future housing program, for example, I am a member and on the advisory group of that particular project. And that project in itself is one, within the budget, I mean, a lot of young professionals are excited. The feedback after the launch 2 Saturdays ago was extremely overwhelming. I feel like this particular initiative is one that has great opportunities for young professionals who obviously want to own a home, because we've been seeing with this housing revolution, many persons have benefited from housing. And I mean, I don't have to tell you what the benefit of housing is, right? I mean, we can see it and we know exactly how it benefits any individual who receives a house. But for a young professional, it has been quite difficult to access housing at a young age. As I said earlier this morning, we're seeing an era of feminists. Young women perhaps remain single through their 40s, and on single incomes it might be more difficult to actually access finance for a house, right, on their own. And so this particular program allows many young professionals who may not have been able to access financing through the institutions to actually be able to come, decide whatever, design or plan they would like, whether it's a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom. And as the Prime Minister mentioned earlier today, even to add particular amenities to that particular area that they have selected, whether it would be in Warner or Cotton Hill or Hillsborough Garden at a later stage. And that would be at a subsidized cost, right? And I cannot tell you how beautiful the views are in Warner. That in itself, as well as Cotton Hill.
Or Central Grande.
But that particular initiative is one, obviously, as the tagline says, it creates empowerment for ownership, right? And that in itself leads to generational wealth. When we listen to some of the stories of the persons on the advisory groups that spoke about, the houses that their grandparents were beneficiaries of, and those houses serving as collateral to send them to university 10, 20, 30 years later, that in itself speaks wonders. And that in itself, it gives an idea of what this future housing program for young professionals will do for future generations.
I'll tell you something, this is one of the futures, yes, but the $40,000, the support to persons who are below 40.
Oh, 10,000.
That is one of the triumphs, I would say, of the government in the last few years, and it hasn't yet been trumpeted, in my view, the way it should be. Because I know personally, I'm past 40, so it doesn't. I can't benefit from it. But I know many persons who have been working, and they have been paying their rent, their bills, etc. But they simply can't afford the cost, the high cost of the land, the house, but they want to get ahead. So when I heard that mentioned, I thought, that's fantastic. That's exactly what some persons, I mean, indeed, I know many persons who have benefited from that program. The Futures program is another fantastic idea as well.
Yeah.
As you explained, persons now get the opportunity to get state support to own their house. But guess what it does? The bigger picture is not just owning the house, That's a fantastic thing. You get shelter. The money that you would have spent in interest to pay for that mortgage, you can now use it for education. Get into small business. Put in an account somewhere so you could send your children to state college or beyond. This is money that you would have spent, but the state is assisting you at that point in your life to make things better for yourself and your family. So it's not just the house that you get. Many persons think just the house, well, that's fantastic, but they don't look beyond that. We have to look beyond this to see the true story, the true value of this incentive, of this initiative, by the government. I think this is one of the triumphs of this government, and I hope they would embrace it and blow the trumpets, do Labokabli dance if they have to.
We've been doing that already.
Yes,
We have been doing the dance because we understand the impact, we understand the value as well.
Yes.
I mean, the square footage of land in Warner is quite expensive, and so to subsidize a lot of the costs through land and as well construction, we can only recognize the benefits. It will allow me to perhaps take more vacations.
Yes.
Staycations.
The real benefits.
Because
Dr.
Mrs. Smith, you haven't touched on tourism yet. Huh?
Oh no, we'll get there.
Oh, okay, right.
I'm watching the time. We'll get there. I'm Dr. Henderson, but still the future housing program. I mean, this government is almost synonymous with housing, the housing revolution. So this is not new. But what sets apart, or what sets this program apart from what we've seen before, especially in terms of building stronger society and empowering people, as Ms. McDougall referred to?
Well, the first thing that jumps out at you, it's not a housing scheme.
That's
it's a whole new development. And although I would say for the last 5 years in particular, we have developed housing areas, so residential communities, rather than the traditional housing schemes, because you see all facilities have community facilities, commercial space, and of course built with resilience, undergrounding of lines and ensuring that you actually build in communities. That is a concept that we've been pursuing for the last 22 years, but we have been able to realize it more so in the last 5 years, and the evidence is there. So the future housing will again move towards that direction. But what this new housing development will do in particular is exactly what Ms. McDougall said, is the empowerment of people, especially young professionals, creating more opportunities for them, bringing them in a space that reflects their own achievements, and I think that is also important, because people who work hard, people who achieve, also want to feel that they too can climb up that social ladder, and I think it is essential, without of course losing the connectivity, or the connection rather, to communities, and ensuring that in fact we're not creating sort of an affluence that can be sometimes not a good companion to development, because we've seen how we have moved away from communities to just residential areas.
Right.
So I hope that will not be the case here. So I think it creates something that's slightly different. And what we've been used to over the years is actually developing and providing to families that really would not otherwise be able to afford. In this case, we are assisting young people, some of whom would have difficulties affording, but we're making it easier for them. And and even those who could afford, we're also giving them a break. So it is sort of a working with the middle class in a manner that has never been seen before. And I think this is something I support wholeheartedly. I hope that we will be able to expand it beyond, because I know the demands are there, and so forth. But we have to combine a number of things. Yeah. Some that we've been doing in the past, reducing interest rates, providing service lots. I think there are certain basic facilities. I know the Prime Minister is committed to working as well. He said it a few years ago, and I hope the private sector could take him on for this. That government is willing to provide support to private companies that are prepared to do similar type of developments, so that it is subsidized. The key thing is to give a subsidy that young professionals can benefit from. So all that is part of the overall vision of this new housing development.
And just before we leave housing, the Prime Minister did mention that other housing initiatives will continue, and we know, for example, in Centre Grande, housing is ongoing.
I know your favorite site, you love that view. Yeah.
It really is beautiful. Ms. McDougall, you're in for quite a tour, apparently. Minister wants to bring you across the country. But yes, so housing is ongoing this year, this fiscal year. We can certainly look forward to new developments springing up in communities, and those that are already underway continuing. So positive news for the housing sector in general. All right, so one of the major capital projects expected to continue this financial year is the international airport. And note that I said continue because the Prime Minister has made it really clear that the project is underway. Dr. Anderson, starting with you, how confident are you in the outlook for this project, especially in light of the Prime Minister's announcements today that a construction contract had been signed and earthworks would continue or rather begin this year?
Well, I'm very confident because we have made the biggest investments, that upfront investments that are required, that is to say the acquisition of lands, the relocation of families. We have seen the construction of houses in the Joe Burton area where over $24 million have been invested to pay compensation for 130 properties that we acquired in that area. Some families opted, they chose to have government build houses to them. Some decided to get paid, some decided to get land, and a combination of those things. So that is ongoing. There are still more acquisitions that to be finalized. The last report I saw, we have acquired, a couple hundred properties, and arrangements are being made to settle those amounts. So that is exciting news. The bigger news that we heard today, the announcement that China Rail 5 has been contracted for the construction of the airport. That is huge news. So this is not only preparing, but this is actually awarding a contract, and we will see in the coming months mobilization of that company. We will see some more activity on the ground. The big one is the cotton field. This is a huge undertaking. I mean, we know Dominica, all of us know the terrain, and that area is not a flat area. So there's going to be a lot of work and a lot of opportunities and a lot of employment. Some people are going to make a lot of money. Truckers, heavy duty, heavy equipment operators. There are people going to make money. The suppliers of goods and services and meals and every time you have a development, some of the things that we may take for granted is that, especially I don't want it to be in a sexist way, but the women who normally provide meals for the workers on the site is an opportunity for employment and creating some opportunities within the communities, and that is one of the things I like about this project. They generate some income in the community and people can benefit at a grassroots level. That is also very important. So some of the main things that had to be done in preparation of the project, the design, I mean, it's an amazing design, world class. I have been to so many airports in the world. So if I tell you it's a nice airport, trust me, it's a nice airport. But really, it is really amazing, the design. It is taking into account our own nature isle image, also building for resilience, and ensuring that we really have a modern facility that can accommodate the new aircrafts and to ensure that we can have long-haul flights into Dominica as far as from Asia, just ensuring that we have those facilities so that once we make this investment, this will be a 40-year investment that can remain there without having to invest in expansion, as you've seen throughout the world. Usually airports go through those expansions sooner than others. So we're building with the future in mind, and I have to say hats off to the committee and the team, Mr. Johnson and his team working on this. They have done a tremendous amount of work, and it's really impressive where we are now. So really the next step is to ensure that the contractor gets on island, get fully mobilized, and that we can see the commencement of the earthworks, which is, as I said, the major part of this. And this is where the real challenge will be. There are bridges to be built there. I mean, there are so many things to be done, and we will see activities stepping up in the coming months, and that is something that we should all be excited about, because it means Dominica's future is bright, opening up the country to expand tourism, to bring more money into the country, and everyone could benefit in one way or the other.
How excited are you two about the international airport?
Well, I'm super excited for many reasons. I like I said, I like to look beyond just a mere completed project. So it's not just the structure, but what could that mean for farmers? What could that mean for the persons who do the menial tasks of dusting the counters, of tidying up the seating area, the hair braiders, the persons who sell their snacks at the airports? What does that mean for education system, for air controllers, air traffic controllers, what does that mean for employment generally and for the standard of living, the quality of life in that area? What does that mean for the Dominican psyche? Because since I was small, we always felt that we were lesser mortals because we didn't have an international airport, we didn't have a this, we didn't have a that. So what could that mean to the Dominican psyche? Could we see a resurgence, a sudden burst of patriotic fervor? And Dominicans want to come back home now because it's supposed to be easier. Yeah, come back home and establish shop.
Doc, I don't know the bus your Bob, but we're already feeling that, you will fly to my
we are seeing some of that.
I don't know about you, but
We are seeing some of
I am
that.
feeling pretty good right now.
So that's where my focus is. That's why I'm excited about geothermal. That's why I'm excited about the airport. I see the potential. I do not know that we are preparing ourselves for this to optimize the capacity of that project. I know some work is being done, but we have to organize ourselves better so that, and it's not just not a government thing. I'm not one. I always tell persons, you rely on the government. The government puts a structure there for you. How now you want the government to come and take you, build a shed for you to sell your snacks, then still give you the snacks?
To sell.
You know, it's something. Show a sense of, well, ambition is the word my mother would use. I want to see us embrace the opportunities. There are many creative persons in Dominica and in the general area of the airport who are already taking advantage of the opportunities. I wish that we could do more of that.
Ashma, I want to pick up on that thread of what he's talking about, whether we are preparing for the potential benefits of this project. And I wanted to mention it because it's also a theme that the Prime Minister seemed to be adhering to, which is that these major projects are coming on stream, the international airport, the geothermal project, opportunities in agriculture. How is the population, particularly youth, preparing themselves to take advantage of these new opportunities? How does the National Youth Council play a role in helping the government to reach these people?
Right. Definitely goes back again to that, that partnership approach, because in identifying opportunities for youth, as Dr. Jajak mentioned, there are many opportunities that are obviously going to come from this project, right? And the Prime Minister alluded to the number of jobs that are going to be created. And not just the regular jobs, but specializations.
Exactly.
And we have seen an increase in the number of persons who are going up to study, right? There are many students, I think he mentioned 173 persons who graduated this year across the world. That's many graduates. That's a lot of knowledge that is out there that can obviously come back and contribute to economic development, right? So it's important for us to ensure that we are somewhat in dialogue with many of those who are in the diaspora and here in Dominica to ensure that we can understand what their needs are. What would make returning attractive, right? It's necessary for us to understand that as well. And so I think the approach to somewhat ensuring that youth are aware of the opportunities has to be one where, the government engages young persons to understand exactly what fields they're perhaps going into, or somewhat, I would say, identifying what are the priority areas that are needed, right? So if we're sending off 100 students to study in the upcoming academic year, it has to be matched with what is going to be ready by 2024.
Yeah, that's part of the work that we are undertaking with the Ministry of Education and Human Resource Development, because what we're seeking to do, and you're right, it's really a theme throughout. The Prime Minister is speaking to our young people in particular to prepare themselves for jobs in the airport, to prepare themselves in geothermal, geoscience, engineering and management, all sorts of stuff, logistics, project management. So yes, what we have been doing, at least in the part of geothermal energy development, we have sent a number of people for training. We have on-staff trained Dominicans, young Dominicans. People may not know that. We have people who are training geothermal on island. They don't have the kind of experience, but they have the training. We just got an opportunity for some training for them. We have sent several people to train in Iceland at the UN geothermal school there. So there are opportunities. There are young people who have made their own investments. I just spoke to a young man today. I'm hoping that we can do something about that. He's trained. He's not in the field, and I hope we can have him into the system where we can actually have the opportunity to develop his skills in energy development, renewable energy development. So there are opportunities, and we are seeking to do our own assessment, to find out the skills that we have on island. And I'm known for chastising my colleagues in the international community, especially at the UN, when we always talk about capacity building and lack of capacity. We don't need an aeronautical engineer if we don't have an aeronautical program. But now that we go into have an international airport, there are skills that we now need.
Exactly.
So we just need to get the skills. So I think it is important for us as part of our planning, and Dr. Jajak has a lot of work cut out for him, you know, post this budget process, because we are going to hit the ground running to see how we can facilitate that kind of identification of skills, see where there are gaps, and how we can get training to fill those gaps. So that is going to be part of the work we'll be doing.
Yeah. So when we talk about international airport, immediately we start thinking of tourism. And I feel like the COVID-19 pandemic has given us an added impetus in tourism. There's quite a revival in tourism activity, in enthusiasm. We've seen a rebranding of the destination, and a number of projects are due to come on stream, including the cable car that the Prime Minister spoke about. What stands out for the three of you in terms of our prospects for the tourism sector?
For me, I feel that there is a genuine effort at improving the tourism product. Now, I was in tourism. I spent time in tourism for a while, and I always felt deeply that Dominica had to do something to ensure that the tourism product was remain stable. By stale, I mean if a tourist visit your Trafalgar today, and he or she comes back tomorrow as in next year, the same rock and water and trees, person just might come back a third time, you know. But probably by that second time, the person says, well, I've seen it already. What am I coming back to? It's the same water and rock. Where is the effort to retain that visitor? And I'm thinking, I've always thought, one way to retain the visitor and to have him come back with more of his friends is by maintaining a wow factor. You could do this by enhancing the product, the Trafalgar Falls. Now, this is a natural area. You will ask, well, how do we enhance it? There are many ways we can enhance. Let's look at our friends from the PRC in China, what they do with their gorges, etc., etc. Or you can enhance, you can discover and enhance all the sites. We hear the PM speak of the Guanet Falls. We hear them speak of the Coal Soufre. In other words, there's a whole itinerary in that area that the tourists, I know the tourism ministry, they have been working on to promote. So what I see there in this budget is an effort, a genuine effort at putting money to improving our product. That could mean, and of course marketing, because you increase the product, therefore you make a bigger effort at calling persons, come and see what we have done, come and see what we have. Yes? So this is what I found very exciting in tourism. Genuine effort at product development, but also an effort at letting the world know of this product. Marketing through re-imaging and repositioning of the tourism. There is room for hope. Exciting, so exciting to me, and therefore I'm looking forward to see next year when next year comes around.
Doc, I mean, yeah, I agree. We need to make the fear exciting and wow, but it's already wow, because we've been voted as a #1.
Yeah.
You know, the best island in the Caribbean for 2022, and I mean, clearly we have a product that is second to none in the region. I agree with you. We have to get ways to improve that product. But I will tell you, and I am not saying this to disagree with you, but I'm telling you that there are people I've met who've told me that they come to Dominica almost every year. I met a family that has visited Dominica so many times, you'll be surprised. And there are those, so again, you have to be able to achieve that little balance, because there are those that don't want to change. They love it.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful, it's pristine, it's just an amazing place to visit. So I get you that wow factor, I would put it in, and what I'm hearing from you is the investments that we say we're going to make in facilities and product development. And PM spoke about it.
Yeah.
And even some things he has said privately to us as well, because he has his own vision for how our facilities, our sites should be, how they should look, how they should feel. And I think that is where I agree with you. That is the enhancement that we spoke about in the budget.
Right.
So in the project development, that is going to be a major part of it. And also, I think tourism is a lot about experience. And I find that one of the things I think we've not done well, and I've been trying to figure how I can even make my contribution, even in Grand Bay. How do we make a tourism experience a living experience? The community vibe, you know? Because people go to certain parts of the world because they want to feel how people live. You know?
So correct.
You know, so I think we need to refocus our efforts in community tourism, for example, in a way that you can create more living experiences. Somebody needs to go. If somebody goes to Grand Bay, they can go down by G-Tech there, go by the little bakery they have there, buy some bread, feel how it is. A partner making juices there, right there, fresh juice, you go there, you go down the road, people dancing Bel Air. People have been to places in the world like that. You go for it and people, you experience the culture. Why is it that we don't have, Tradibel or Duby Cultural Group or Piditsami Cultural Group performing at Jungle Bay, at least once a week? There are certain things that we need to add to the product that doesn't cost much. And I think as part of, and I'm very excited about what we have this time around, looking at the product development, because product development has a lot to do with upgrading sites and attractions, but also enhancing the overall package, the experience, living through the community.
No, it's true. That's true. You don't have to touch the rocks at the waterfall, but you might have ladies in grass skirt dancing now and then, which this could add to the wow factors.
Well, right. So as I said, we're not that far, but we're also looking at marketing and reimaging, repositioning of the tourism sector. Because you see, I think we also must accept the fact that for a number of years, we were really not pushing this tourism stuff. I mean, we really took I think it's really around the late 90s, early 2000s, when we realized bananas were really going down. We really had opportunities to take advantage of. We started growing that sector. But I think it's only in recent times that we have opened up in such a way with more flights to Dominica, better connectivity, code sharing with international airlines and the smaller ones in the region. All of this to facilitate, and the big thing, as I said, Bossman, I mean, those days as a little boy, I used to go to St. Martin every holiday.
Yeah.
And I know when you see sun go down on you free wherever you are. If you're Antigua, you reach, you carriage home. And we passed that long time. The Labour Party that changed that, by the way. Night landing. We put night landing there because and now, the biggest thing, we're talking about that today. A friend of mine, his family lives in Miami. And he told me, boy, you have no idea how nice that is. I can just get on a plane and I just land in Miami. No, but seriously, it's psychologically, and that is why I believe that the load factor on that flight has been so high. It's just the fact that you don't have to worry about the hustle.
Yeah.
And somebody in Miami can just decide, in New York, can just decide, I'm going to Dominica. It's easy. I don't have to go through those hoops. There are those who love the hoops, by the way. They are the adventurers, there are people who like to go from
I'll take 20 different stops. I'll take 20 different places if I have to.
But the majority of people are not looking for that challenge.
Exactly.
So we've seen that. So air access, or access into Dominica, because we have the ports.
Yeah.
And by the way, we're going to invest in a new marina.
Yeah.
So we are enhancing access to Dominica. That is the key thing. The international airport will open it up in a huge way. But what we're doing now, and it's something to talk about, if you permit me. What we're doing now with American Airlines and the other airlines with the code sharing is preparing us for the international airport. Because I hear people say, but you're already American, why you need an airport again? No, but there's more than America. There are connections to Europe.
Yes.
And in addition to that, you need capacity. You know, you cannot bring too many people on one flight with their luggage, you know, at Douglas Charles as it is. The runway is too short, so there are limitations. We're just able to get this Embraer flight at the capacity, but load, not load factor, but load.
Yeah.
You know, the amount of stuff it can bring in is limited. But what we're doing now is ensuring that Dominica is known as a destination. So now we stand a better chance at getting flights into an international airport once constructed, because people are already now getting connected to the jet destination. Imagine going out there to talk to people about coming to Dominica. No major airline is coming there. It's a difficult sell. And we're doing that, and then the visitor experience is what we're talking about. So this is also one of the main objectives of tourism for this financial year to enhance that visitor experience. And there are a number of things that will be done. Beautification is a big one.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very excited about this one. It's something that we've been doing gradually. You've seen what the NEP have done to most of our communities. Our villages are pretty, and I have to thank the NEP, you know, workers, especially in Grand Bay and Tetmont Mountain. You know, always nice and clean, and they're helping me now to clean my playing field, so I want to thank them for that.
But I want to also add to what you said, you know, because both of your points are extremely amazing as it relates to, you know, the experience that visitors want to obviously experience when they come to Dominica. And Dr. Henderson, you mentioned right there the fact that, you know, you'd like to go to, for example, Jungle Bay and see a group performing. These are opportunities for young persons to be immersed in culture.
I told some that already.
Yeah. Indeed.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes,
and perhaps not just, you know, the drummers or you know, the dancers, but steel pan, for example, right? And this is a good opportunity to get youth involved in culture, right? All of these are opportunities that will create jobs for them as well. And so, I mean, this is an opportunity for, as well, I would say, you know, hoteliers and small business owners to look to see how you can somewhat incorporate these experiences and give the young persons an opportunity to perhaps, you know, perform at your institutions. This in itself not only creates jobs, but I cannot tell you the impact it would have on cultural preservation, which is an important component of the visitor experience that we're discussing here.
Okay. So as with these discussions, sometimes the time flies, and there are a couple of things I want to touch on before we end. For example, I wanted to talk a bit about the opportunities that are opening up in the town of Portsmouth. The Prime Minister mentioned the new administrative building, the creation of employment with Clare Harbour, and the coming of a new university to replace Ross University. What are your views on these developments in Portsmouth?
Well, for me, I am very excited about the decentralization of services, right, for the administrative complex, because for some persons, it will definitely, I mean, we have to look at the big picture, right? For decentralization of services, that in itself can lead to persons actually having greater disposable incomes. The money that they would be spending to commute from these other pockets of the island to the city will be saved. And for individuals, it means that they would have greater access to obviously getting these services in a quicker time frame, and perhaps in a more efficient time frame. And the Prime Minister did allude to expenditure efficiency through this budget. And so I'm really excited for that, you know, as opposed to coming all the way from the north, traveling to get a birth certificate or traveling to get a license. It's much easier to access these services in other areas. And so I'm really excited for that particular component. In addition to that, it would create opportunities for jobs for persons, for example, who live in those communities that, you know, these services would probably be afforded to these individuals. So that's one aspect I'm really excited for.
So the town of Portsmouth is an exciting time for them.
Yeah.
It's an exciting time, really, because in addition to this administrative building, and by the way, they will also benefit from a bypass that will help to reduce the bottleneck into Borough Square.
Yes.
So that is going to be done. In addition to that, I want to go further north before I come back to Portsmouth. In Ansdemay, don't forget, that major facility. I don't know why. After the Prime Minister said all that, why you call it a jetty now?
That's what he said.
I mean, that's a big thing, you know. That's a serious, you know, facility that's going to be developed right there.
Misleading us.
Yeah, man.
Misleading us.
I was teasing on that one. But I think this is major. And because we've not had that kind, I mean, in addition to the crucial berth, that's there. But the kind of activity that happened in that at that Anstimate facility, it really at least needs that kind of upgrade, and I'm very excited that we are going to make that type of investment. So fishers can benefit, and people who ply in the trade, just moving back and forth to the Saints, Marigaland, it's right there. And we know that historically there has been a strong ties and connection there, commerce taking place. So that is exciting news for the North. In addition to that, when you get back to Portsmouth, before you even get there, right next to the Kempinski, we're going to construct a marina. And that marina will be able to accommodate mega yachts. This is amazing. And I feel very excited about this, Dion. Mainly because the people who are going to develop that facility are the same people who developed the Kempinski Hotel. Range Development, Dominica. These guys, they're serious. And, I worked very closely with them to introduce them to Dominica years ago, worked with them to get that project going, and they are one of the most serious people you will ever have the opportunity to work with. And the fact that they are coming back in Dominica to do this facility, this is exciting for us, and I have no doubt that, they can deliver a world-class facility. We've met the designers, they came to Dominica, they've been doing work, and even this week, they're here in Dominica, so we're hoping to see that accelerate. The medical school, we know it's been a while. It's been a while, it's been long coming, but we wanted to get it right. There are many proposals, expressions of interest sent to government. Government reviewed those proposals and felt that this group now that has been selected is in fact the partner that we need to get this going. And the arrangement, which we'll hear about in coming days, will be for the benefit of Dominicans. Provisions are made to ensure that they do not get involved. That is to say, the medical school doesn't get involved in stuff like accommodation. So we will protect that for locals, and some services will only be provided by locals. So that is in an effort to ensure that as much benefit as possible can go to our people.
All right, so Portsmouth is in for an exciting time.
Very
and there were the
exciting days.
other measures Dr. Henderson, Dr. Jajak mentioned: permanent reduction of land transfer fees, removal of duties, taxes, levies, and charges on all pleasure crafts imported into Dominica, the creation of a ship's registry for small pleasure boats, temporary reduction in motor vehicle licenses, and removal of highway levy effective August 1, which I thought was a significant measure in itself, and the Prime Minister was very specific about how that would benefit drivers across the board in terms of hard figures. So these measures, I think, our population needs to pay attention to and decide how they're going to benefit.
I'll tell you something, Mrs. Smith. I think the public service has a huge task of informing the public of these programs. I've been in the service for many years. I've always lamented the fact that I don't think we do a good job at letting the world know of what is there for them.
Yes.
Ms. Douglas McDougall, indicated that they were surprised that many youth did not know the work of the DYBT.
Yes.
And the DYBT to me is one of the crowns, one of the jewels in the crown of the public service. So we have a lot of work cut out for us. I don't think we do well enough at letting Dominicans know what is there available for them, how we benefit them.
Certainly, I think we do have a lot of work cut out for. I like.
You have a lot of work.
Yes, I'm going to accept this fully. And I think the budget is presented in such a way, it's so specific, it's so clear that it almost provides us with a very clear roadmap on how we can begin to promote some of the policies and programs of this government. But I wanted to end on a similar note, because as I mentioned earlier, for many people, the budget is abstract. And I remember Ms. McDougall telling me earlier that she spoke with one or two of her peers, and they told her point blank they didn't listen to the budget because they don't appreciate how it impacts their life. So I want each of you to weigh in on how we tell our young people, our population, our farmers, our small business owners, how do we help them to operationalize the contents of the budget and make it relevant to their everyday life?
Well, from my own perspective, I would say that in actually getting this information to young persons, it has to be in their language, right? And for many of them, and I mean, even me as a young person, I'm in the older, I'm in the older bracket of youth. And so when we're targeting 18 to 24-year-olds, for example, it's quite tedious trying to, someone give them this document and asking them to read through it and expecting them to understand what's in it. They won't do that. So I think it's necessary for us to make the information more, I would say, reader-friendly, as well, something that translates to their language, something that they would be interested in, reading and understanding and seeing how it might benefit them as well. More importantly, I mean, as a researcher, I think information just needs to be more available. For many persons, they don't necessarily know what avenues they should look at to get the information. And I think that's where the National Youth Council can obviously lend a role in just ensuring that we could support by disseminating the information that is being shared within the platforms, so that more persons would actually have access. And I mean, in this era of digital transformation, it's necessary to ensure that we're, really reaching out to persons through the internet, through the different social media platforms. And I think that is one way that, we can really see persons benefiting more from it, because they would have greater access to knowing what's available and as well understanding how they can benefit from it, from the different initiatives that have been implemented, are currently existing, and those that will come in the future.
Dr. Jaja?
Certainly, it would not be counterproductive to attempt to have conversations in technical terms of a budget with many persons. So you simply indicate to them the budget in there has a clear indication of how the government is going to help you. So if that you is a farmer, yes, there's an indication that we're going to fix the roads in Mopo, we're going to fix the roads in Kahum, sorry. You're a young person at college, second year college, DSC. There is support, continued support there for your education. Look, it is indicated right there. If you have the document, you should always pinpoint for the person what it is in there for them. Leave out all the fancy jargon and just keep it real, as I say.
Dr. Henderson?
Well, I like what both of you said, and clearly I don't want to do Dion's work for her. I could give her some free consultancy. But I think really truly, I think what is required though is what Dr. Jajak said. What happens? It is basically taking that part, and it becomes a responsibility of the implementing line ministry.
That's right.
So it becomes a responsibility. We need to communicate better.
That's right.
We need to use every medium that is available to us to get information out. I don't think it has much to do with the language. Because if a guy is interested in a stuff and you tell him about the stuff, don't worry, he'll find out. He will understand it. Don't put yourself with that. Man say they're not interested in that because I have nothing for them. They're wrong. But still, if you were to say, you know what, hey guys, I know that really want to push our greenhouse thing. The government said they put $1 million in that there. Simple as that. But so I think what are the things that I have taken on as a responsibility, as the minister responsible for the supervision of the public sector investment program, with the assistance of Dr. Shajak and the team in the ministry, is to sit with all the ministries. We started pre-budget. We started discussing all the initiatives that we were anticipating and asking ministries to put together something written down in terms of almost the instruction manual for that facility, for example. So the procurement of agricultural products, how exactly is it supposed to work? From the beginning to the very end, what do we do? So we have done, we started that work, we'll continue, but a major component of that is public relations, getting out there, letting people know, because you made a very important point, the DYBT has been around since I was Minister of Youth. I was the one who launched it. After Prime Minister Scarry gave it the ministry when he became Prime Minister, he started working on it, and I was the one who launched it. And that was quite a while back. I'm not a young man anymore. So it's been there, it's been around, and since then we have put millions of dollars out every year in this program and expanding it. And so we have to do a better job with our outreach. Members of Parliament need to go out to their constituencies and let their constituents know what is in there, what is being provided. At least I have reached out to my farmers group. They expect it, and we will be meeting soon. We had a discussion today on micro processors and how we can work with them. Some people in light manufacturing, what opportunities we can take advantage of. So we all have that role to play. And I said we have saying those elected members of Parliament in government, but I think every line ministry needs to come out with its own plan for implementation, which must include a public relations component.
Alrighty, so that about takes us to the end of the discussion. There's so much more we could discuss, but I think we touched on the major.
Pretty good job.
You guys did a good
I'm
job.
not sure if you understood what you were talking about pleasure crafts, but I think we did a pretty good job.
So I want to thank all of you for coming and being so enthused, really, about talking to the populace about what is in the budget for them and how they can benefit. So thank you so much for participating, and I encourage all of you to spend some time with the 2022-2023 budget and find out on your own and get familiar with what's in it for you. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good evening.